When is your homework due? Sunday at midnight? Okay. All right. So yesterday we were talking about 4 types of minor parties, and we got through number 1, which was ideological or ideological. Yes?
No, we did not get to minor parties.
Oh, we didn't even talk about minor parties. Well, let me tell you something. There are 4 types of minor parties. Minor. Yes. You can put them into 4 categories.
Does the first one happen to be ideological?
Yes, the first one is ideological or ideological, depending on how you want to say it.
Ideological.
You like ideological?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, say ideology. Most people say ideology instead of ideology.
But you can mispronounce ideology as ideology.
Yes. And some of these ideological parties are idiots. Yeah, sure. IDEO, logical.
I did it first. It's the 4 types of minor parties.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
4 types of minor parties, ideological. IDEO, logical. And to define would be based on a particular set of beliefs. An ideology, if you will. So, these rarely win, but they are long-lived, i.e., the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the Libertarian Party. Okay, they've been around a long time. They rarely win. Okay, and obviously, you're talking about ideology. So Marxism, communism, socialism, libertarianism, so forth. Nazism. Yes. Yeah. It's allowed. It's a free country.
Is it still around?
I don't know if there's one today.
Is the American
Okay. Now, if there is an American Nazi Party, it is very small, and they never win. Okay. So, are they a threat? Are they a threat? No, not unless they do harm to other people. Okay. Now, we just recognize them as idiots. Okay. Ignorant is a good word. Yes. Okay. Now, the second type of minor party is a single issue party, as the name may imply. A single issue. Now on page 63, there are a lot of these, okay? But historically in this country, you may have heard of some of these single issue parties, like the Free Soil Party, or the Know Nothing Party, or the Pot Party, or the Green Party. Green Party, yes? It's a single issue, the environment, yes? Okay, now, these usually fade away over time, or as a major party adopts their stance, they're no longer needed. They get what they want in the end. So that's single issue. The third type of minor party can be classified as an economic protest party. Economic protest. Now, there's been a couple of these during your lifetime. You may not have heard of them. But historically, you may have heard of the Greenback Party, the Populist Party, like Teddy Roosevelt, populist, man of the people. Yes? And you can call Donald Trump a lot of things. One thing that people accurately called him was a populist. He resonated with the people, especially the lower classes. Okay? Teddy was similar to that. okay, as a populist. Okay, so to accurately describe Donald Trump, you would call him a nationalistic populist. He was a nationalist and a populist, okay? Not a fascist, not an authoritarian. A bully? Sure. A swindler? Maybe. Somebody that has had 3 marriages? 4? I don't know what it was. But, you know what I mean? You call him a lot of things. Okay? But generally, to describe him would be a nationalistic populist. Okay? Or a national populist. Okay. Now, in your lifetime, any guys ever heard of Occupy Wall Street?
Yeah, I don't.
Look, this kind of sprung up. It's kind of a grassroots thing that sprung up where people were upset with corporate greed. They were upset with like hedge fund managers that make crazy amounts of money for not doing hardly any work. Okay. And so these sprung up in different cities all over the United States. Now, they're not actually a party because they didn't run candidates for office. And then in 2009, 2010, we saw the Tea Party. Heard of the Tea Party? Oh, okay. Ava? No? Okay. Well, Ava's dad is in politics. So I expect that, like, some of the dinner table conversation revolves around politics. Like my kids, mom and dad talk about politics. Okay.
I won't let my mother.
Oh yeah. Some kids are pretty well versed. Now, listen, the Tea Party comes about after the passage of Obamacare. Okay. And what the real thing that the Tea Party was standing against was big government and the national debt. Okay. I mean, we hit 30 trillion this year. Okay. So when Obamacare went into law, the amount of government spending went up. We were starting to run not hundreds of billions of dollars of deficits, but $1 trillion deficits. Like the federal government spending more than $1 trillion than it takes in. There's too many, that's absurd. It's crazy. And it angered a lot of people. So this Tea Party movement started. Now, this was 2010. And when I heard that there was a Tea Party rally coming to Lawrence Dumont Stadium parking lot, I'm like, oh yeah. Let me ask Mrs. Harshberger if I can take my honors government class down to the Tea Party rally. She said yes. So we made signs. Mm-hmm. You're not in a good year. Now we got an election year coming up, but it's a congressional election year.
Just rally for something. You know, like,
Yeah.
Like our cupcakes. Or no, like is a hot dog a sandwich? And we make signs.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Ava, your dad helped me out. I think it was in a 2012 election. Mike Huckabee was running for president. And Mr. Dugan knew Mr. Huckabee. He's the governor of Arkansas. Okay. And he's running for president. And he was doing a rally coming to Wichita out of Jabara Airport. So he set us up, my class up, and we went in and got to shake Mr. Huckabee's hand. And, you know, he liked to play the bass. So he had like a band, you know. He's a corny guy. Okay. Huckabee, he's a really nice guy. He's corny. Okay. He didn't have any chance to win, but he tried. Okay. And when we went to the Tea Party rally, all of my students were dressed in their school uniforms. Okay. So, I mean, people are like doing double takes, you know. And they say, well, we're from Bishop Carroll, we're here for the Tea Party rally. And they, you know, they do music. It's all patriotic stuff. Now, the Tea Party got marginalized by the media. They said the Tea Party was only really born because Barack Obama was black. And so they kind of marginalized the Tea Party organizations as racist. And so people don't want to be identified with a racist group. So the Tea Party just kind of broke up. Not that it was racist, it was just marginalized as such. People did care about, the national debt and how much government was building, That's not racist, but yeah.
Why was it called the Tea Party?
Like an act of rebellion. Like we're upset, we're mad, we're angry, and we're not taking it anymore. So listen, in the 2010 midterm elections, listen, the Democrats got destroyed after Obamacare passed. Okay, just destroyed. I mean, even Barack Obama's former seat that he held in the United States Senate from Illinois, one of the bluest states of the blue, went to a Republican. Now, that only lasted for one term and it went back to the Democrats. But that says something. Okay, people were pissed. Now, if you look at polls back in 2009 about Obamacare, like what percentage of people support it, what percent did? It was like 60-40. No. Okay. Today, if you ask people, it's close to 50-50. Okay. So, I mean, Obamacare is pretty much dead right now, but it's still there, but it's not what it was. It's been, for lack of a better term, castrated. What popped into my head? Okay. So economic protest parties, guys, usually no clear-cut ideology, like everybody shares an ideology. And they usually fade away. When good times come, which they do, we go through this, you get this. When good times return, these parties don't need to exist. Okay. The fourth type of minor party is a splinter party. Splinter. Now, this is where an individual, usually a famous one, from one of the two major parties, splits from the major party to create a third party. Yesterday, when I was over at the Electoral College map, I was talking about third parties and how they did in the Electoral College. The two most famous of these was, I talked about Strom Thurmond yesterday, yes? It was a Dixiecrat, okay? And a pretty famous Democrat split with the party, created a new party. And then the other was another Democrat, George Wallace, that split and created the American Independent Party in 1968. 68, yeah. Okay, the segregationists, the American Independent Party. Okay, so occasionally that happens. The other one is Teddy Roosevelt himself. Teddy Roosevelt split from the Democratic Party, became a what? Created what party? He ran for president as a populist, but he created a party called the Bull Moose Party. Okay, that didn't last very long, but yeah, he ran as a populist. Yeah, I think he got 88 electoral college votes as a populist. He lost. Yeah, took third. I think you're right. Yeah, there was no Democratic candidate. It's on there. Look at 1912.
There was 3.
1912. It's on the bottom. Can you read it? There's like an R. Yeah, Robert. Was it 12? Here. Teddy finished second.
Yeah.
Okay, so Democrat Wilson, populist, and Republican William H. Taft got 8. Taft got 8. Republican. Okay.
Wasn't he the really big one?
Yeah, he's the Taft. That was Howard Taft that was president.
Oh, it's just the same.
What?
They both say William H.
Howard Taft? William Howard Taft, sorry. Yeah.
So it was the same dude.
So he was president,
Was they related?
So how do you?
and then he lost.
How do you decide?
I'm pretty sure like you guys sold this for a baseball bat. And there's a box that he ordered.
He was the one that got stuck in the bathtub, right?
I love the best one here. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay,
They were not cheap on that White House one.
sheep, so like mowing, like goats?
But they were like without, there's a fence there now, but like it was the public fence.
Yeah.
And there were sheep everywhere.
You know, there used to be people that come into the White House and sleep. Yeah, I mean, it was the people's house.
Wait, what's that?
Had like cows in the White House box, so like make cheese.
Probably. I mean, I know like McKinley would, walk out of the White House and go get something to eat and, DC and stuff like that.
Can they not do that?
Huh.
I know like Obama did it a few times.
In fact, there was something controversial that happened when Trump wanted to do that. There was the church across the street that like burned in a protest. And this was a bad photo op. He wanted to do a photo op. And there were a bunch of protesters and they moved them and there was a big controversy where they used to burn grass. Yeah, that was a whole stupid dumb thing. Okay. Should have never done it. Okay.
Didn't the lady have miscarriage because she was shot?
I don't know that. It could have happened.
I remember, sorry, I read an interview
Yeah.
with the priest of that church. And he was like, what the hell? Yeah.
I'm gonna buy your glasses.
Just carrying a Bible.
It's okay.
I mean, it was okay. The Progressive Party, La Follette is another one. Okay, moving on. All right, so we got 4 types of minor parties, but these minor parties play a role in our system. Actually, in 3 different ways. So 3 roles that these minor parties play in our system. How many roles? 3 roles. Now, some of these we've kind of already talked about, but I'll give you some different examples. The first role of a minor party is spoiler. Spoiler. Yeah, I know it looks like a gun. Florida looks like a gun. Okay. Carol, please take care of your water bottle. I'm trying. Okay, let's go to the year 2000. I think I've probably mentioned this election before. Now, this is one of the closest elections we've had in American history. What was the Electoral College in 2000? Okay, so what it came down to was Florida, because there's this freaking county down here called Broward County. No, yeah, Broward. And it always seems every time Florida has an election, Broward is the last one to get the results in. It's just north of Miami, and they just can't seem to get their act together. But anyhow, the ballots they were using that year in South Florida were punch-out ballots. So, like a little perforated piece of paper that you could punch out, and it creates a hole in the paper. Yes? And then you can run it through a scanner, and wherever there's a hole in the paper, that's who they voted for. You follow me? Okay. The little pieces of paper that you punch out are called chads. Have we talked about the hanging chads in here? Okay, so this is crazy, all right? So sometimes when you push the piece of paper through, it doesn't fall all the way off. And so it's like dangling there. So does that count as a vote if the chad hasn't fallen off? Yes. But what about a dimpled chad? Like somebody pushed the thing but didn't break through the paper. Does that count as a vote?
In the scanner, probably.
Okay, so it's very close election, okay? Now, at 7 p.m. that day, that night, CNN called Florida for Al Gore. You know how they call the election night, okay? Way too early. This is a really close election in Florida. The panhandle up here, as I've referred to in the past, is LA, Lower Alabama, or the Redneck Riviera. It's very conservative. Okay, and the polls are open an hour later here. It's the central time zone in the panhandle. Anybody know what river that is?
Mississippi's way over. That's fine.
Mississippi's over here. Way off. Country music fans? Way down yonder on the Chattahoochee? That's the Chattahoochee. It divides Alabama and Georgia. Okay? Now, way down west of the Chattahoochee, these people hadn't finished voting, and CNN calls the election. And George W. Bush is running for president, right? He's from Texas. His brother, Jeb Bush, his older brother, Jeb, is the governor of Florida. And W. Bush is in Florida on election night with his governor brother. And Bush comes out immediately after CNN calls it. He says, no, we're not conceding Florida. The voting's not over. The Wichita Eagle, guys, on election night, published 3 different front pages. So the front page I got at my house was different than the front page that the school got that day. Which is kind of, well, because it kept changing as the night went on. Now, we used to have a newspaper in Wichita. Now we have a newspaper from Kansas City, because you know the Eagles printed in Kansas City. The deadline for the Wichita Eagles is 7 p.m. Even on election night, because they got to print it in Kansas City and ship it down here. Okay? So, anyhow, Brevard County couldn't get their act together. Gore goes to the Florida Supreme Court that night, emergency call to the Supreme Court, saying we need to do a statewide recount of Florida. And the Florida Supreme Court said, yes, we're going to do a full recount of Florida. Bush says, well, hold up now. The only problem is in Brevard County. Broward County. There's a Brevard, too. Okay? And the U.S. Supreme Court, Bush goes to the U.S. Supreme Court saying this, it should just be this one county. Everybody else has done their job. U.S. Supreme Court sides with Bush. So, we got to recount Broward County, okay? And so, this is where the television cameras come in, and you've got all these poll workers trying to figure out whether a hanging chat is a vote or a dimpled chat. They're holding these things up to the light because maybe it was an old person. You know, there's a lot of old people in Florida, right? Maybe they couldn't push through the piece of paper or something. Or, I don't know. What do we count? You know, so they figure this all out. They recount Broward County, and Bush wins the election in Florida by a couple hundred votes. And Bush wins the presidency. Okay. Now, on the ballot in Florida was this guy, Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader, back in the late 60s, wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed, talking about the automobile industry and the pollution that is created by automobiles and the deaths and everything else. It inspired the green movement in this country. You know, we got Earth Day in the 1970s. Happy Earth Day, right? So you started to see more environmentally conscious Americans. And Ralph Nader kind of became the poster child of that. So he said, I'm going to run for president under the Green Party. And he got on the ballot in enough states to win. And Ralph Nader got 2% of the popular vote in Florida. Now, when we talked about Ross Perot's 19% yesterday, I told you that likely most of those voters, the majority of the voters that voted for Perot came from the Republican Party. We cannot be sure of that. Many Democrats voted for Perot as well. He was liked by many. But Nader, in the year 2000, you've got to think at least 3/4 of those votes came from Democrats that voted for the Green Party. Yes? And had Ralph Nader not been on the ballot, Al Gore would have been president. Ralph Nader was a spoiler. Does that make sense? And by the way, guys, in 2016, there was a Green Party candidate. Okay? In some states, she got as high as Jill Stein, I think it was her name, Jill Stein. In some states, I think she got as high as 5% of the vote. Okay? Which certainly probably cost Hillary. Yes? Okay? Now, the Democrats have wised up to this. So what they did is they took role number 2 here. Role number 2 of a minor party is innovator or reformer. So innovator, 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 or reformer. One of the 2 major parties adopts the minor party's stance. Which of the 2 major parties have adopted the Green Party stance? No. So I don't know. You guys know AOC, right? Andrea Ocasio-Cortez. Okay. The Green New Deal is her. She wrote that. Her and her staff wrote that. Now, when you look at Joe Biden, when he became president, who ran as a moderate, right? Yes? Remember when we talked about the infrastructure bills? The 1.1 trillion was literally for infrastructure, roads, bridges, stuff like that. The other was the 3-something trillion one that was the human infrastructure, which was the Green New Deal stuff that President Biden put his support behind. I would think that most Green Party members of the 2000s or the 2016s would say, yeah, we don't need a Green Party candidate. We have AOC. We've got the Green New Deal in the Democratic Party. We're good. And so in the end, they get what they wanted. Yes? And the Republican Party certainly took up the banner of the Tea Party in 2010. Said, yeah, let's get these people to vote for us. Okay? Now, a lot of them were Republicans anyways, but some of them were Democrats. Okay? So, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Guys, this is an important role. So yesterday we talked about, no, we didn't talk about that. We're about to talk about that. But this gives, people with passionate views, passionate ideologies. Now, the Democratic Party has not adopted the ideological set of beliefs of socialism totally yet. Right? Not totally. Has either one adopted pot? Not on the national party. Yeah. And libertarians obviously support, freedom to put whatever you want in your body. Now, guys, I've been teaching this for. You've been listening to Joe Rogan or what? Let's do some magic mushrooms, okay? All right. It's coming. Well, they've already legalized mushrooms in what, Oregon? I'm not sure about LSD. Huh?
I'm pretty sure Oregon has legalized every narcotic.
I thought Oregon's thing was that they decriminalized.
Yeah. Well, they can't make it legal because it's against federal law.
think all they do now is like spend the money that they would have spent sending you to jail and sending you to rehab. So,
Or spending on education. Okay, all right, hey, listen, I've been teaching this class for 23 years, okay? So like, when I talked about pot 23 years ago, like I said, I don't think one of these two parties will ever adopt marijuana as, part of their platform. I'm not so sure. And it could be both parties.
yeah.
So you have your kind of your libertarian wing of the Republican Party, like your Rand Paul and people like that. Like, you know what? I mean, let people make their own choices. So kind of that wing, and then of course the Democratic Party of kind of the more socially liberal that said, hey, let people do whatever they want. I mean, Daryl, you bring up a good point. The problem with that is the price that society pays for that.
It's a little expensive. No, not if you think we can build.
With crime, and then the effect on children.
What about our dental bills?
Well, can't be bad credit, right?
You guys know over 100,000 Americans died from overdoses. It's a big, it's a huge problem.
Which one? Oh, we have a heroin
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, just talk to cops. It's awful. And fentanyl.
Oh, fentanyl.
You guys, don't take pills that you're not prescribed, and do not use pills when you don't have pain. We talked about this. I've had friends that this has happened to. Okay. All right. The third role of a minor party. The third role of a minor party is that it stops or prevents disenfranchisement. Disenfranchisement. Let me spell that for you. D-I-S-E-N, franchisement. You know how to spell franchise. Okay, franchise. F-R-A-N-C-H-I-S-E-M-E-N-T.
I had it right.
Disenfranchisement.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Guys, suffrage is a right to vote, yes? Disenfranchisement is when people don't feel like they don't have anybody to vote for. Nobody that thinks like they do. So these minor parties help people feel like they can be part of the system that previously they were not part of. Here I bring up our good friend, Ron Paul. Now, Ron Paul was a member of the United States House of Representatives from Texas for close to 30 years. He is a medical doctor, an OBGYN, medical doctor, okay, that ran for the House. He is a libertarian, but he used the vehicle of the Republican Party to come to power, to get in office. And so in 2008, he ran as a Republican candidate for president. Now, as I told you before, when I went down to the Sedgwick County caucus in 2016 with Trump and Cruz, I told you that story. Well, in 2008, I went down to the caucus, and I started seeing these like strange-looking Republicans, like with long hair and piercings on their face and tattoos. And I'm like, who are these Republicans? This is interesting. And I walk up, there's this guy with this scraggly hair, long hair, got a thing here, and he's handing out these these bumper stickers. I said, hey, how you doing? I'll take one of those. He was there for Rand Paul. Rand Paul brought a bunch of libertarians into the Republican Party. They felt like they had somebody that they could identify with. This old guy, that's an OBGYN. Okay? Like the young people in 2012 and 2016 that supported Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? They got excited about it. Feel the burn. So, these minor parties give an outlet to people. It stops disenfranchisement. Yes? Now, Ron Paul, what? Ron Paul had a son. I'm not sure whether he delivered his son or not. His son is Rand Paul, R-A-N-D. Rand Paul is a senator from the state of Kentucky. Rand Paul is very libertarian like his father. And probably, if you look at voting records, Rand Paul is probably the most conservative member of the United States Senate. And he himself has run for president twice now. Okay. So, he's kind of weird, but people like him. It's dad and son. A little bit weird. Okay. But, anyhow. All right, good? So, we're done with minor parties for a little while. And we're going to move on to the two big ones. The organization of political parties. New header. Organization of political parties. And today we will focus on the national. The two national parties. The Republican National Committee and Democratic, leave a little space. Okay. These two committees run the parties. The Republican National Committee has 100 members. You can guess how many from each state. And we're going to do this right. One male and one female. So one. From each state. The Democrats, being more democratic, have 133 members. Two from each state, one male, one female. Okay? Plus 33 at-large members for the larger states. So California gets more. Yeah.
Why do they call the Republican Party the GOP?
The grand old party. It's in your homework. Anybody do that yet?
Absolutely. You said Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday. I understand. I signed it a while ago. Yesterday. The day before. Okay. All right. So they get at-large members. Okay. Now, they have two main jobs: the RNC and the DNC. How many? Two. Let's run. Every 4 years. Okay, I mentioned these conventions yesterday, I believe. So the two parties will pick a city, usually in a swing state, What do I mean by a swing state? Name some swing states.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you know, I have a hard time calling Pennsylvania a swing state because Trump won it 2016, but no Republican had won it in like 20 plus years. Give me some better ones. Florida, Arizona's a swing state right now.
All of the rest of them.
But like Wisconsin, same thing with Trump. I mean, it's been blue for a long time. Michigan, kind of. Ohio is a swing state. No Republican has ever won a national election for president without winning Ohio. Now, Trump won it pretty easily. Okay, but it's a swing state. Trump did well in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio because somebody said it, the Rust Belt. Because what did Trump talk about? He talked about bringing back manufacturing jobs. A lot of these people's families used to be in those manufacturing jobs. They're all gone. Okay, so you can see why that resonated with people. Okay. So they pick a city that's 4 days long. Okay, so it's a big planning event, costs hundreds of millions of dollars to put on. Crazy. Okay. The other major role that they have is raise money. Lots of money. I mentioned this name the other day, I think. How many of you guys know who Derek Schmidt is? Way to go, Ava.
I know something.
He's the Kansas Secretary of State. And he is going to challenge Governor Laura Kelly in November, okay, for the governorship of Kansas. Now, if the Republicans think Derek Schmidt is a good candidate, if the RNC thinks he's a good candidate, they're going to send him money, or they're going to spend money on his behalf. Okay? So usually, especially in these tight races, this is where the RNC and DNC really use their cash. Okay? Now, I used to give money to the RNC. I worked, when I was a young person, in college, I worked on Jeb Bush's first run for governor of Florida. Didn't do a lot. I mean, I volunteered. And he lost. Okay, he lost his first attempt. He was running against a Democrat. He was famous in Florida. You know, the South used to be all Democrats. And his name was Walton Childs. Walton Lawton Childs, okay? And everybody loved Lawton Childs, okay? And so Bush had a hard time beating him. Second time around, Childs wasn't running, and Bush won, okay? Then in 2000, we had the campaign Bush versus Gore. And this is after 8 years of Bill Clinton, okay? And most Republicans hated Bill Clinton. Now, I got a totally different view of Bill Clinton 20 years removed than I did in 2000. You know what I mean? Like hindsight, looking back, okay? Because I used to bash on Clinton. I don't bash, obviously he's got some personal issues, okay? But he wasn't a bad president, okay? In fact, he oversaw a pretty good decade in the 90s, okay? And he didn't screw it up. Yeah. Poor choice of words there. Okay. Thanks. Now, so I'm behind Bush. I'm W. Bush from Texas. I'm behind this guy, right? I'm like, let's go. Let's get it. And he ran as a conservative. I'm like, let's go. So I'm sending the RNC money. I don't give a lot of it. $25, $50, whatever. It's still my money. Okay. And then Bush gets into office. The first 2 years, Republicans control Congress. And you got a Republican president. All right. Let's fix some things. Like, let's fix Social Security. Let's make it where, it's gonna last long. Okay, let's come up with some solutions here. We got a chance. Bullshit. Shoot. 9/11 happened. September 2001. He's been in office for like 6 months. And everything just went to crap. Okay, and I thought Bush handled everything well, including the Iraq War 2003, and then I look back at it, and that was a really bad mistake, I think. And so, but the thing that really got me was the spending that the Republicans were doing while Bush was in office. And I'm like, dude, I elected you guys to be fiscally responsible, and you're acting like drunken Democrats. And so the RNC calls me back and they say, hey, please, send us some money. We need help. We got to defeat Hillary. Like, no, I'm not giving you any money. And I haven't since. They call every year. They send me stuff in the mail. I've not given them one red cent since. I don't like the Republican Party. I dislike the Democratic Party more. So yes, I'm a registered Republican, but I'm not a rah-rah Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a conservatarian is what I am. Okay? So, it's about the policies, guys. It's not about the personality. You understand? If you're voting for somebody's personality, you're an idiot. Look at the policies and the effect that they're going to have on society. Then make your choice. Okay? I'm for more manufacturing in America, so we're not so reliant on foreign producers of things we need in this country that we're seeing the effect of right now because of COVID. I am for lower taxes. I am for less government spending. I am for balancing the budget. These are all things Donald Trump talked about. I voted for Donald Trump. Was he sometimes a mean, nasty bully? Yeah. Did he do mean tweets? Yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Now, I hope he doesn't run again. If he runs again and gets the nomination, I'll probably vote for him again. But I hope he doesn't. Because if he runs, he's going to win the nomination. Because you got a lot of Trumpers out there. And these aren't bad people. They're just diehard Trumpers. Okay? If Trump runs, some of the better Republican candidates will probably stay out of it. They won't run. Okay? If Joe Biden runs, some of the better Democratic candidates won't run. Didn't we read a Federalist paper on that? No, that was my regular classes. All right.
Wait, why?
Huh?
What's in the Federalist paper?
Federalist number 71 talks about 4-year terms for president. Now, the 2-term limit obviously came later. It takes a long time for policies to take effect, to see the impact of policies over a long term. Okay, so it's certainly less chaotic to have 4-year terms. You know what I mean? Especially as long as our election cycle lasts. That'd be horrible. Okay. Okay. Are you guys closing? What are you doing? Are you leaving? Okay. Now, the 2 people in charge of these 2 parties are called the chairpersons. Okay. So the RNC chair is a woman named Ronna Romney McDaniel. Related to Mitt. His daughter. Okay? She's more conservative than her father. The DNC chair is Jamie Harrison. If you watch enough CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, you'll see these people on TV every now and then. Okay. Harrison, Jamie Harrison is an African American male. Okay. Now, these two, when their party is not in power, are seen as the head of the party. So currently the head of the Republican Party in the United States of America is Ronna Romney McDaniel. Currently, the head of the Democratic Party in the United States of America is who? Joe Biden. Okay. Now, these two have very important roles. They have two roles. How many roles? Two. The first is to win the presidency and control of Congress. To win. The second role of the chairs is to create party unity. This is a difficult job. Now, guys, I talked about this before. When Trump ran in 2016, the Republican Party did not want Trump to win. Guys, these 100 people, these are people that have been in politics for decades. Who is this businessman, this millionaire businessman? Who does he think he is? Coming in here and criticizing people like the respected John McCain. Coming in here and trashing on people like the respected former governor of Florida, Jeb Bush. Who does he think he is? So when he won the nomination, how do we get behind the other class? Okay, if you'll remind me tomorrow, party unity, I'll talk a little bit about with both parties. Gianna, that's why you were packing up, because the bell was about to ring.